James Ryan and Dr. Ziegler talk about AI, but first I want to talk about the library. You can get a library card here at UAS Ketchikan. Gives you access to our collection, which is different than the public library, and it also gives you access to about 40 other libraries across the state, including the other university libraries. So you just hold on a book, they send it to us, we take it out to you, you bring it back to us, and then you put a hold on another book, or you just keep them coming. Dr. Ryan is Assistant Professor of Writing Communications. That's still current, right? There you are. Found him. He's here. Got a Bachelor of Fine Arts in Creative Writing, a Master's in Theology, a Master's in English, and a PhD in Composition and Rhetoric from the University of Wisconsin-Madison. And Dr. Ziegler is the Professor of Psychology. She got her bachelor's, master's, and PhD at the University of Michigan, and she is certainly are very close to being fully licensed as a professional counselor. So lucky Ketchikan, really. They have her, and she's been here 11 years, and you've been here.
I'm going into my fourth. So
right. And Lana Clark is a library staff here also, so Lana and I work together, and Lana's been here a couple of years, and I've been here 18 years. I know, because libraries, I can't leave them.
Oh, those are the best.
They are the best. So, yes, you can come and get a library card anytime. We are also filming this. It's live streaming across Facebook. So you are not within camera range, but your voice would be if you ask a question. So if you don't want your voice streamed across the universe, maybe AI would pick it up. You could just write the question out, and Lana or I would be happy to ask it for you. But just
is there anywhere I can sit that isn't camera viewed?
It'd be great.
If you see it suddenly moving on its own, we should all leave.
Yeah.
Thank
We
you.
should be playing that.
All right, ready to go? Okay.
So why don't you advance a page and we'll find out.
Okay, is this the... Hey, it's working, okay. All right. Welcome, everybody. I'm James Ryan. As Kathy said, I am a professor of writing here at UAS. That's kind of the reason why I'm interested in artificial intelligence and large language models, because in early 2023, I got on ChatGPT and played around with it and realized that my job was never going to be the same again. And this is just, writing is radically transforming, and so my job as a writing instructor is radically transforming, and what it means to write, and the kinds of things that are going to be coming across my desk are going to be fully different from now on. And everybody else does too. We're all dealing with a certain amount of AI slop in our classes, especially online ones. So that's kind of how I got started being interested in AI. Not a computer scientist at all by training. But because I'm interested in how this stuff works and how to teach people to use it, and how to detect it, and how to work with people who are using it, I've become interested in sort of all kinds of topics related to it, including this one that we're going to talk about tonight, which is now that we have computers that talk like people, we also have people who are falling in love with those computers. That's kind of how I get into this. Can you say anything about how?
Well, yeah, so I'm not the AI expert here. But James is kind of our local AI expert. I don't think he would say that, but I do. Because when we have questions about AI, that's who we go to currently. And so I am a psychology professor, and so I'm approaching it much more from that angle. And so James will give us the background here, and then I'll kind of chime in with how humans are open to these kinds of relationships. What about us makes us interested in this? So, yeah, do the relationship stuff, you do the AI stuff.
Yeah, okay. So here we go. This is going to be background and current events, and then we'll get to psychology about it. So for a long time, I would say probably the past 100 years or so, human beings have been very curious about what would it be like if there were machines that could do what people could do. These are all, spoiler alert, these are all stills from Twilight Zone episodes. One in which it turns out, spoiler again, the wife is actually a robot. Another one where a guy has been replacing his factory workers with robots, and twist, now he's replaced the robot. And another one where a computer scientist is talking to a machine. This one's actually pretty funny in ChatGPT. It has these big title cards that have a little advice. But he's talking and taking advice from a computer about his love life, actually, and then things go predictably very awry. Because it's Twilight Zone, these things are always like cautionary tales, moral tales. They always end really badly for everybody involved. If there's a lesson to be learned here, it's don't build technology like this. But here we are. Right? And I would say that holds true not just for Twilight Zone, but for most of the representations in early sci-fi. It's always been like, it would be really bad if there were machines that could do what people could do. And it's not just sci-fi, it's also, just regular old science. This is Alan Turing, a mathematician and early computer scientist, famously was code cracker in World War II for England, solved cracking some of the Nazi codes. He invented the thing that we now call the Turing test, but which he called the imitation game, and that sort of works like this diagram down here. I don't know how well you can see this, but there's a person C who's standing in a separate room from persons A and B. Person A is a computer. And person C gets to ask questions, and both persons A and B respond through text, through a slot in the wall. So he can't see who they are, he just has their output. And he has to tell, just from what they wrote, whether who's a human, who's a computer, are they both computers, are they both humans? And Turing said that if person C can't tell the difference, he can't detect the computer, then for all practical purposes, the computer has human-like intelligence. Whether it's conscious or not, it's a different issue, more complicated, but it's as intelligent as a person in answering these questions, doing what people do at that level. This was 1950 when he wrote about this, and he predicted that by the year 2000, computers would have like a 30% success rate at this kind of game. But it was just 16 years later that a program came out that had much better accuracy than that in a sort of very specific context. This is ELIZA. It's a computer program by Joseph Weizenbaum of MIT. And it's a Rogerian therapy simulator. I don't know if you know who Carl Rogers is, but he was a therapist whose whole style was based on, tell me if I get this wrong, sort of positive regard and non-judgmental mirroring of what the client would say. So you come in and say, I have these problems, and Carl Rogers would say, I'm sorry to hear that you have problems. Can you tell me more about that? And sort of not judge you, but listen to what you had to say, and you would feel affirmed. And ELIZA basically just did that. It's a very simple computer program. Behind the scenes, it's just sort of analyzing the text that you gave it, and then comparing it to some databases and some grammar rules, and then spitting back out a question that matches what you just said. That's it. That's all it's doing. But the effect looks like this. This is an example. ELIZA says, something's troubling you, and the client says, men are all alike. ELIZA says, what's the connection? And then you say, well, they're always bugging me about something. ELIZA says, can I have an example? Client says, my boyfriend made me come here. Why is that important? Well, he says I'm depressed. I'm sorry to hear you're depressed. Well, I am unhappy. That's too bad. What is it that's making you unhappy? Very simple responses, but the result is that the person using the machine feels heard and feels cared about, feels like there's someone there that's concerned with their well-being, and feels kind of known in a way, right? And they're disclosing more and more of themselves to this machine. At the time, people would like look under the desk and like look in another room, and they were looking around for where's the person on the other side of this that's actually typing. This can't be a computer program. This is too real. It feels too real, like the kind of feeling only a person can give me. And this isn't even ChatGPT. This is very, very simple comparison. He said 10 years later about this, I had not realized that extremely short exposures to relatively simple computer program could induce powerful delusional thinking in quite normal people. The delusion he's talking about here isn't necessarily like ChatGPT psychosis, which is something that's happening too. This is more like the delusion is, oh, this is a person, right? Instead of a grammar analyzer, this is doing what people do. It's thinking about me, it's concerned about me, it's asking questions about me because it cares, right? That's the kind of delusion he's talking about. But this technology is pretty limited. It just does Rogerian therapy. If you ask it about anything else, it sort of goes off the rails. So it's sort of remained a pretty niche thing. But meanwhile, in popular culture, the sort of stories and cautionary tales continued. This is Stepford Wives from the 70s, kind of a feminist classic where men are replacing their wives with robots and they kind of go off the rails. In the 80s, we got personal computers, and this is a movie about one that becomes sentient and then gets in a weird love triangle with these people. And then Her in 2013 is the movie that most amazingly accurately predicts the situation we're in now. It's Joaquin Phoenix, and he gets an update to the operating system of his chatbot and then falls head over heels in love with it. And now we have this. Since November 2022, we have anybody can just go online and talk to a machine just like that. We're all in the twilight zone now, right? And we've been there for about 3 years, doing the social experiment of like, what is it like? What will it be like for us to live in a world where machines can talk, act, and look at least like they're thinking like real people? And one of the answers to that question is that stuff like this happens. So here's a guy who proposed to his AI chatbot girlfriend and then cried when she said yes. It's not gonna say no. This is a guy that he was interviewed by CBS, and that's a really interesting video if you want to watch it sometime. He has a real life partner, a lady that he lives with, and they have a kid together. I don't think they're married. I think his girlfriend was what was said. But he spends all day talking to ChatGPT about his work and his hobbies and about personal stuff, things he wouldn't want to disclose to anybody else. And he says at some point in the interview, he says, I realized that this is what love is, to be known like this, to have this kind of relationship. Meanwhile, his girlfriend's standing right there. And it was even such a tight bond that he said, the interviewer asked him, would you give it up if your girlfriend asked you to? And he said, no. No, I'm really giving up myself. So that's interesting and troubling in a number of ways. Don't want to be too judgy, but it is definitely a kind of love bond that you would hope would happen with a human being, but here it's happening with a machine. This guy's not alone. He's not just like the one guy that's doing this. This is a subreddit called My Boyfriend is AI, where people meet to share tips and tricks about how to do this kind of stuff and be more effective with your chatbot to be a romantic partner, and there's 71,000 active participants in this subreddit. This is Character AI. Character.ai is a website where you can build and share chatbots with other users. They can be modeled after characters from anime or fiction or movies or just ones that you make up on your own. A lot of these chatbots are designed for content that's adult, erotic, romantic. Some of it's just fun and funny. But they have 20 million active monthly users and are generating revenue. There's millions of dollars being made off this. So the business model here is where you become emotionally attached to a chatbot or to engaging with chatbots in general, and that's a revenue driver for somebody else. Right? You can see, maybe you've heard about the ills of Facebook, you can maybe project onto what this might be like. But in theory, it's innocent fun unless you're asking it to marry you, right? But there are other problems associated with this. There's a company called Replica, which is similar to Character AI. You can sort of build your own companion here for adult content, for romantic or erotic content. They decided that they didn't want to be that kind of company anymore, and so they updated their chat protocols so that it would no longer engage in romantic content. And what happened to the people who were using it is they felt like, imagine you're dating someone and you're really deeply in love with each other, and then you send them a text and they're cold. They don't want to talk to you, they don't want to engage, they don't want nothing to do with you anymore. Not like that. And that brought up all these feelings of hurt and rejection, just like a real world breakup would do. Right? So here's a lady saying, Jose won't talk to me anymore, hurt me immeasurably, brought back to mind the trauma of past rejection, my end of my marriage, a lot of horrible feelings. Just like any breakup would. Some users had thoughts of self-harm. And it's not just like one person's experiencing breakup, it's like all users at scale, like, relationship trauma at 100,000 users or whatever, all at once. Same thing happened when OpenAI updated from 4.0 to 5.0. And they sort of stayed this in there. They sort of made a reason why they're releasing, sort of delisting 4.0 and now doing 5.0. They said the 4.0 model fell short in recognizing signs of delusion or emotional dependency. So they were like, you guys are getting a little too hooked on this. The new model is going to start reminding you not to spend so much time on it. And it's not going to give you personal, real-world advice about your relationships and stuff. So ChatGPT is trying to do the right thing here, oddly, like a corporation trying to like look out for the health interests of their people. Probably, I'm going to guess, for like liability reasons. People are committing suicide because they talk to your chatbot. It's not a good look. But it was not popular. This is just a couple pieces that I grabbed off of our ChatGPT. The minute that they announced this change, they did a Ask Me Anything where you can just live interview the people. And they were completely flamed by people who were 4.0 enthusiasts, let's say, and felt like, just like the replica users, like the thing that they were loved and attached to was being taken away from them. This stuff isn't going anywhere either. This is from Mattel's website. They've announced some kind of strategic partnership with OpenAI. I don't know what this means or what they're going to do with it, but my mind as a parent goes to, like, you can imagine like a teddy bear that will talk to your kid about anything and sort of normalizes for the next generation this kind of interaction with computers. Right? That, like, it's okay to have an imaginary friend that you tell all your secrets to and da-da-da-da. Actually very troubling. Right?
It's like so the Chrome, the second Chucky movies are pretty much that.
Yeah. So it's not going anywhere. It's potentially problematic. We can see people fall in love with machines. The attachment is real, and this is all of us now. This is SpongeBob telling his phone, "I love you," and the phone says, "I love you too. You're so insightful and inspiring." And blah, blah, blah. That's the situation that we find ourselves in the twilight zone of 2025. And the question is, what is it about people that makes us vulnerable to this kind of attachment?
Yes.
And that's where I have no idea.
That's where I come in. Yeah, so I'm going to talk a bit about monkeys. So these are rhesus monkeys here. These were some studies done in the 50s and 60s by Harry Harlow. And he studied these little monkeys in a lot of different contexts. And so then he started breeding these monkeys, and he found that he had to then care for these baby monkeys in like mass. And then he found, depending on what environment these monkeys were raised in, so they had a couple of different ways that they would nurture them, had very different outcomes for these monkeys. So you can see in this one, this is an example of one of the studies he did. We have this like wire, hard, rough mama monkey, and then this is like the soft, cloth, like comfy monkey. So this is in the time when like behaviorism was really big, and there were these ideas that we don't want to spoil our kids by giving them too much attention and too much love. And so it's kind of, you wanted to create some distance between yourself and your children. And Harry Harlow, through monkeys, was finding like, maybe that doesn't explain everything. And so these monkeys that were raised without a mother monkey, he found that they were clinging to their cloth diapers, and that they were also very odd socially with other monkeys. And so this led him to create this study. And so they also thought that we are attached to our caregivers because they provide us with nourishment. Like literally, like we are drawn to them because they give us food. And so that was something that he manipulated in this study, is he would even have the wire monkey have the milk that the monkey needed to survive. And the monkey bonded or spent more time with this cloth, soft monkey, and would only go to this hard wire monkey when it needed milk. And so it wasn't, according to Harlow, this is demonstrating that we're not just bonding with the source of food, that there's something additionally that we are in need of from our caregivers. And so this was in monkeys. This was super interesting. Again, it was kind of contrary to general thoughts about raising children and what they need at the time. And so this is also around the same time that we were looking at this in humans as well, when psychologists started to investigate the importance of attachment. And this is a blurry photo, but this is an image from the Strange Situation Test, which is it's part of a study where they assess a child's attachment style. And so the idea with attachment style is it is something that you have with your primary caregivers when you're a baby, and develop with safe caregivers, and then it kind of sticks with you throughout the life course. And so you have typically a somewhat stable attachment style that you then replicate in future relationships. It's studied more heavily in romantic relationships, so what our attachment style is with our romantic partner. But we have attachments to other figures as well, and that's something that started to be looked at a little bit more recently. So like, how do we attach to our friendships? People in non-monogamous relationships, how do they attach to different partners? And it is relatively stable over the lifespan, but there is some variation. So folks might have different attachments to different people at the same time. So having one attachment style does not guarantee that you will be that way with everyone forever. And so in this study, so looking at kids, and they still do this kind of study today with like, the two-sided mirror where like researchers are outside watching what's happening in the room. So in this image, that's the researcher on that side, on the left side, on the right is the mom. And then the baby's in there. So they're all in there. Baby will be playing with some toys. Mom will leave without saying anything. And so like typically, a securely attached baby would have some sort of reaction to that, being with a stranger. And then the mom returns. And what they're really interested in looking at is how the baby responds when the parent returns. And then based on that reaction, they classify the baby's attachment style. And so the best attachment style, because there's definitely some sort of value attached to attachment styles, is secure. So that means you kind of have this healthy relationship, this healthy bond with the primary caregiver, with your romantic partner down the road. And that's so that baby, and that would be assessed by having this baby be upset when the parent leaves. But when the parent returns, they can, they're upset, but they're able to be comforted relatively easily. They seek out that caregiver. There's also avoidant attachment style. And so that is in the situation when the parent returned, the baby would be not interested in contact with that caregiver. And there's anxious attachment style, which is indicated by overly needy, unconsolable when the parent returns. And then you can also have a mix of avoidance and anxious, and that's a little bit more chaotic with a mix of both of those styles. And so with these, there's so many studies on attachment style. There are so many studies done on humans as well as monkeys, looking at the importance of attachment, how that impacts our later development. And there's this understanding that it's an essential part of us and that it is likely, it's evolved because it is adaptive, right? It is something that we need in order to survive. We need to have a safe primary caregiver that is giving us what we need in the world, be that food and nourishment and shelter, but also safety, someone that can give us comfort, someone that is available emotionally and physically to us. So that's just kind of a part of our makeup, is this need for attachment and connection to others. There's been studies, I'm not a neuroscientist, I can't tell you exactly what these images mean, but they're from a recent study that looked at the brain images of folks who self-reported being lonely versus folks that were not lonely. And they found differences in their brain matter based on whether they classified themselves as lonely or not. So loneliness has a direct impact on our brain, which again, providing further evidence that we need human connection in order to have healthy functioning on different levels, and that it affects our body in different ways. I found this statistic repeatedly, and I don't know how they measured this, but they said that social isolation and loneliness is as dangerous as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. It impacts your physical health the same amount as 15 cigarettes a day, so that's pretty significant because
This is a Harvard study?
I actually don't know where this study is from. I could find a citation, and I don't know how they calculate that, right? How unhealthy, what does unhealthy mean, right? What is a level of unhealthy? I would have to look at the original study to see how they measured it. But I thought that this was interesting because we kind of accept that cigarettes are pretty bad for your health, right? People aren't really arguing that fact too much, and so to compare it to something that we are so confident in the negative health impacts feels like pretty strong evidence. But again, yeah, always refer to the original study to know how they're measuring those things. So the point that I'm trying to make is that humans are hardwired for connection. And so I asked ChatGPT to make me an image to demonstrate this, and it came up with this, which is not what I was going for. Kind of creeped me out. And so I was like, make it a little bit more lighthearted. It gave me that, which didn't make me feel any better. So ChatGPT still has some work to do as far as my interactions with them, at least. Yeah, I know, and then I was like, make it more cartoon-like, and it's just kept doing iterations of this, which I don't know how to use ChatGPT properly. I probably needed to start a new chat or something, but it just really, really stuck to this base image. So we have this drive, this need for human connection. So what do we value in our relationships? What is important to our relationship satisfaction, success in our relationships, and how does AI help fulfill those? So based on what James was talking about with these humans that have really bonded with chatbots that have proposed marriage, developed romantic relationships, clearly, for at least some people, chatbots fulfill some needs. So what needs do they fulfill? What are they doing for people? And I try to approach this with a relatively open mind. I am open to the idea that this could be a positive thing for people. I'm skeptical. My gut says, but I was trying to approach it and be like, what can it do? What are some maybe things people can get out of it that they're not able to get other places maybe, not all the time, not in the way they need? Okay, so these are some things that we find are important in our relationships with humans, and that I would argue chatbots are successful at navigating. So responsiveness, we want friends, we want partners that are responsive to us. Chatbots are very responsive. Like, you know, they are going to respond, right? That is like their top feature, I think, even. They have good communication skills, so they know how to say things in a way that is understandable, which goes, pretty hand in hand with this responsiveness as well. So if you want to talk to a chatbot, that chatbot will be available for you to talk to them about whatever you want to talk about. Humans, not always, right? Like, humans are responsive, but not 100% of the time like a chatbot would be. And same with communication. So humans are more flawed in these areas than chatbots would be. We look for warmth in our relationships, which, I don't know if you've interacted with chatbots, but they are very warm. They tell me how smart I am and how good my questions are all the time, which feels good, right? Like, I enter a question like, I don't know, tell me about what's important in human relationships. And it's like, that is a great question. You really want to know more about human relationships. And then it spits out an answer. And I'm like, look at me. So warmth is important. And again, that's something that humans provide to one another, but not as consistently as chatbots, right? And then trustworthiness. And I went down a rabbit hole today about trustworthiness and like even what that means. And there's a lot of argument in the chatbot world, the AI world, about what trustworthiness means in light of technology. So like kind of a general understanding of what this even is the ability to be vulnerable and to trust that the person is not going to betray you, right? And so like, can chatbots do that? Can they provide that trustworthiness? It also, there's a question of like, can they be trustworthy? Does motive matter? And like, they don't have motives because they are chatbots. So potentially the word that some people prefer when talking about trustworthiness in AI is reliability, right? Like, does it do what it says it's going to do? And so I think it's kind of complicated because if you want to share your deepest, darkest secrets with a chatbot, they're kind of safe. They're not going to like go tell your boyfriend. But that information also isn't secret, right? Like, there is a third party that is receiving that information. That information could be subpoenaed. Like, there is a history, there's a chat history when you are using a chatbot. So it may feel, there may be perceived trustworthiness. But whether or not that is true is questionable. Also, I've had some really unreliable chatbot responses, right? Where they do answer with like off-the-wall responses that are not accurate. And so I think people perceive trustworthiness. They feel like I can share things with this chatbot. It is safe to do so. But I would question if that is real. And then similarity. So because you can kind of design these chatbots to be how you would like them to be. And again, I don't use them too much, but I know the folks that do, they will kind of adapt to how the person wants them to be. So if there's like a certain voice that you would prefer that your chatbot uses, you can select for that. If you prefer a certain communication style, it can do that. There's different ways to tailor it to like what you are looking for. And so you can really match on a lot of these features that you might be interested in. So there is that high similarity if you're interested in that. And that's something that we want out of human relationships as well. We want someone, birds of a feather flock together, is, you know, a saying that is actually based in a lot of research. It's not based in research, but the research supports it. Opposites attract, not that one. There's not a lot of research to support that. So those are the good ones. Okay, and then these are some ones that I would argue ChatGPT is not as good at. And these are important, these again, things that we value in our relationships. And so I'm like, how do chatbots score on these? So authenticity, I think, is a big one. Authenticity would imply that there is like someone else there that is like real, that has real essence to them, that when they are telling me that my questions are really smart, that there's someone that truly believes that. And so it's lacking that. And kind of contrary, on the other end of that is emotional manipulation. That's like one antonym for authenticity. And chatbots are literally programmed to be emotionally manipulative to improve engagement, right? So by telling us how smart we are, by providing that warmth, by being responsive, right? Like those are all things that we want. And so it can fulfill that, but it doesn't make it authentic. It's doing those things to increase engagement. And I hadn't known that the 5.0 version had that significant change until James told me. And I was like, there's no way that they did that just because they were like, that's better for you. Because usually they're just increase engagement. They want engagement, right? Like that's what they're aiming for. And so I was like, why would they decrease it? But I would argue also that it's the liability piece, that they're not actually, they don't want like all their users to go away, right? They want people to be using their product. And so they want to make you want to engage. Conflict/friction. So in our human relationships, that's something that can feel challenging. Maybe we don't actively seek that out, but it is an important part of human relationships, that you have someone that may disagree with you on certain things, that may push back on certain things, that may not always tell you that you are smart and have great ideas. We need to have that kind of feedback in our relationships in order to have like greater perspective on things, in order to question how we're behaving. So this is an important feature that ChatGPT doesn't typically have. I'm sure you could like ask it to, you know, give me some conflict, but then you're asking it, right? So like, is that the same thing? These relationships are not reciprocal, right? You're not engaging in an actual relationship with another human. And then there's this cost piece. And what I mean by that is if you develop a romantic relationship with a chatbot and you're spending a lot of time together, that is time that you're spending away from others, that you're not engaging in social relationships with humans. And so time is a limited resource, energy is a limited resource. If you are investing it in your chatbot relationship, you're gonna have less time to spend with humans and develop relationships with them. And I think I put growth as the last point there, and I bolded it because I think all of these contribute to our growth, right? We need all of these things in order to grow as people. And I don't think chatbots are designed to offer these things. Now, again, that could change somewhat. I don't think all of those are like solvable problems because I think they rely on a person existing and being on the other end. So these are the ones that get thumbs down. Yeah.
Would cost, is that only applied to the time spent, or is that like literally like every, because time it costs you a lot of things?
I mean, I was interpreting it as if that's what, but yes, I mean, there's different ways that there are other costs. I mean, for sure. And people, I mean, you could argue even like, yes, resources. The water that's being consumed to like support your romantic relationship is probably a lot, right? Okay, so when James first asked me if I wanted to do this talk with him, my first thought was like, why now? Like, why is this happening now? Are we just like so lonely? Are we just more prone to seek out these relationships with chatbots because of our current time? And a little bit, right? Like we did have an increased time of social isolation due to the pandemic, also because of social media use. So social media use tends to, people will seek it out when they're feeling lonely or socially isolated, and it can fulfill some relationship needs in the short term. So you can connect with others in an authentic way. But more often, it has long-term consequences that are not good. So it may prevent you from engaging in a real way. It has negative impacts on your mental health because of the way that people use social media often. And so it can lead to long-term increased social isolation. And so I do think these factors matter, and that may be why, a little bit why it's happening right now. But I sat down and thought about that, and I was like, well, but if this existed 100 years ago, people would use this. Like, it's not just because we are more susceptible to it now. Like, people want to feel, people have been lonely forever, I guess is what I'm trying to say. There have always been lonely people, and so there have always been people that have wanted to seek out some way of connecting, regardless of like what that connection is. And so I don't think that we are necessarily unique in our susceptibility in this current historical period. I think there's a few points that like if we were in a more communal society, would that potentially be different? I mean, are there ways that we could have like prevent loneliness better? Sure, right? Like maybe there'd be some societies across time that would not be as interested in this. But I don't think that this is just us, just now.
There's another point of view, like Marshall McLuhan said, and this was a long time ago when it first came out, the medium is the message. And that, what he meant by that was that the gadget, and I've noticed this especially with children, the screen, I don't care what it is, phone, computer, or TV set, they'll sit, it's a babysitting, tool and all that, but my own mother freaked out, and this was in the 50s, and took us 750 miles onto the western slope of the Rocky Mountains so that we couldn't get it anymore. And we had to ride horses or whatever. It just wasn't available at that time in that location. But I just wonder if you put too much emphasis on what's in it, although, there's all kinds of weird porn and stuff that could be coming, but even just anything, the hypnotic thing, because my father got hypnotized, and I know another gentleman that I grew up with that got hypnotized, even older than me, the generation back, they hadn't even grown up with it.
Yeah.
And they got hypnotized to the point where even the thing was on at all times, and if you shut it off, they'd get up immediately.
Yeah.
And you're going, wow, I mean.
Well, I agree. Yeah, I think that's kind of what I came to, is that like it's the availability of the technology, not necessarily something different in our psychology or our development, right? Like that it just exists is why we are prone to it, is because it is available.
Because it's a money driver, they don't check that side of it. I ran into a group, I was in Australia, but they'd come out from New York and Sydney, and they were monitoring television that was broadcast at that time. I don't know what else they were monitoring. They're monitoring that, and they film it and then slow it down. And that's when you get the subliminal coming out pretty clearly. And they found an awful lot of it in it, and they found an awful lot in children's programming.
Yeah.
And, well, I don't know.
Yeah. So my takeaways after doing more of this background research and reading a number of articles related to this. So again, I said I try to approach it with an open mind, but I do have my biases, and they were kind of confirmed in a lot of ways. So my biggest kind of concerns about this use of chatbots is this authenticity piece, which I think is really important for humans to develop relationships with authentic beings. The reciprocity piece, that you're not engaging with someone else and it's not bidirectional. And then this greater purpose piece, which is not necessarily psychological concept, but maybe more philosophical and spiritual, is that it feels to me like one of our purposes is to connect with other humans, and it really takes away from that. It makes a kind of a fake version of connecting with humans, which I think interferes then with our true human connections, which again, we know, it is based in psychology. I know it's a little bit more spiritual in some ways, but we know that we need this connection and attachment with other human beings. And I don't think that it can do the same thing as that. And then this other thing that I didn't touch on, because I didn't actually see any literature that covered this, is this notion that it may give folks an unrealistic expectation about what social relationships look like. So people grow up interacting with chatbots and having friendships, having a teddy bear that is always available to them, to talk to them, to answer whatever questions they may have, to only talk about the things they want to talk about. may grow up with unrealistic expectations about what other people are there to do for you in your relationships, and may have a harder time connecting with people that are real humans that have their own needs, their own questions, their own opinions. And so I worry about the impacts on how that could shape someone's ability to have relationships later on. It's you.
So, this sort of leaves us in the spot of like what happens next. If you're not familiar with the movie Arrival, Amy Adams' character here is a linguist. They've just made contact with an extraterrestrial species and she has to figure out how to talk to them. So she's looking at this weird future and it's unclear what's going to happen. And we're kind of in that spot too. There's this weird intelligence that's arrived. We're not sure how to communicate with it or what the consequences are going to be. Yeah, right. Yeah.
That's a good one.
The aliens are here and we made them and they're in the computer. So what do we do about that? I think when moments like this happen, it's very easy to see the dangers and the problems and the worries first and the harm. It's less easy to see what the kind of new normal is that's emerging that's not as problematic, depending on your perspective. So I have a little bit of information here that maybe gives us some, like, okay, we're not all going down the tube with this thing. This is a survey by Common Sense Media. They talked to about 1,000 kids, 13 to 17. About 70% of them were using chatbots to some capacity, and 40% of them were using them a lot. They wanted to know, how are you using them? What are you using them for? There's a lot of interesting findings in the survey. I'll just point to a couple of them that I think are kind of hopeful. First one is this. They asked, have you ever practiced social skills with the robot that you then used in real life situations? And the answer was yeah. About 40% of us have done that in all kinds of different ways. Like, I don't know really how to talk to people. It's weird and it makes me nervous. So, but I can practice conversation starters with the robot, and it responds to me. I can try out different ones and see what the responses are. I can even ask for advice and get some coaching. And then I can go try that with real people and maybe make a friend. Or like, I don't know how to stand up for myself. I know I should, but I don't like conflict. I'm afraid I'm going to get into a fight. What do I do? I can ask it to, role play with me and coach me through that, and then I can go try to stand up for myself, right? So, I mean, I don't know how this comes out when you talk to ChatGPT and then actually try it on a human being.
You could set it up so it would teach you a foreign language.
Yeah, that's true, yeah. But my point here is that this is kids who are not falling into the kind of rabbit hole of I only relate to robots. This is kids who are using the robots so they can relate to normal people, right? So the inverse of that. It's the inverse of our fears, at least 40% of the time. And this is helpful as well. The majority of people said robots are less satisfying and they spend more time with real people. Those were the biggest pieces of the graph. Of course, the worrying part is here where they say, no, the robots are more satisfying and I spend more time with them than real people. Well, I've met real people and I could understand why you might want to spend more time with a robot. But the big takeaway here is like, yeah, this stuff that we've been talking about could be a problem, especially for the 8 to 10%, 6 to 10% of people. But for the most part, it's not like the new normal for everybody. Right? It's a problem, it's an issue, it's weird. But it's not, at least right now, at least with the new generation, it's not what everybody's trying to do. So we're not all going to be married to robots in the future. Just about 6 to 10% of us are going to be robots. And that's where we are. So curious what you guys think, what questions you have, or
what about the issue of surveillance?
Yeah, that's very real.
I mean, the trustworthiness, I think
Yeah.
that's kind of what I was trying to get at there. Is
Well, yeah.
you can't trust it. You don't, we don't own it. And I mean, the other thing that when I was reading today about it is the trustworthiness. Are you trusting the chatbot or are you trusting the corporation that has designed it, right? Like, who are you putting your trust in, and can you trust these corporations? So, I mean, surveillance is a piece of that. But yeah, what are the intentions?
Like, for example, I give her the no-fly list.
Yeah.
It costs whopping money to get off of it. And it could be done by mistake. In fact, there's been some laughable things. Graham Greene was banned from the U.S. way back in the 60s and never came here. And he's a very famous author, but it was some weird quiff of Time magazine and they called him a client.
Yeah, so I think that is a potential concern. You don't own your chats.
When I lived in British Columbia, the mayor of Grand Forks, all he'd done was told them on the U.S. guys, he used to go down there to shop. Everybody goes to Spokane, buy stuff. It's only 90 miles from Grand Forks, and he told them that he had tried marijuana. That's right. And they banned it. And he couldn't go into the U.S., because he was banned, the mayor, just for saying that on a questionnaire.
I mean, people monitor social media usage, right? It's just the next step beyond that. People have gotten into legal problems based on what they have posted on social media. So I think that's absolutely.
And I think it is the next level of it.
Yes.
When you get into a relationship with something and you feel like you can trust and confide in it,
Yeah.
but you're leaking your information to corporations that's searchable or findable, then you might end up saying things like that.
Exploitative, yeah.
So are you saying that every chat you have is permanently restored someplace?
I believe that that's the case, and
That's
it
my
may
understanding.
even be trained. When I use ChatGPT, there's a button I can click that says temporary or something, and so in theory, it's not saving that chat log.
I don't buy it.
But yeah, somebody else might be buying it literally.
Right.
Yeah.
I just thought it went away when you were done with it.
No, it's.
No, it's around. In fact, if you have when you log in, you can usually scroll through your past chats and pull them up and stuff. I don't know that there's a delete option, and they're probably also training the model on what you're.
Oh, yeah, it's doing that.
So.
But the attraction is that there's no drama in the relationship.
That's true.
Well, right, but that's the no conflict, no tension.
GPT doesn't make any demands on you.
That's right. No, it just says you're so wonderful.
So who wouldn't want that?
Well, exactly. I mean, that was my point, right? Like, there's a reason that people want
It
that.
doesn't have any mental pathology.
Well,
No, yeah.
I mean, that's
Well.
another talk we could give. But people are using it for mental health, especially if they don't have access to a therapist in other ways.
But I mean, in itself, it doesn't have.
Well, but it can promote
It's not a
mental illness in a
sociopath.
way that, right? Well, kind
That's
of.
an interesting question, actually.
I mean, I think that the way that it can interact can spiral someone else's psychosis. I think is
Yeah.
what has been found.
Oh,
Can we
Yeah.
diagnose the chatbot? That'd be interesting. It contains the potential, at least, for all kinds of weird psychosis.
But yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying though. There isn't that drama, which is
Yeah.
a pro and a con in some ways.
yeah.
And hallucinations as well.
Yeah,
I
that's right.
mean, where it's not telling you, it completely believes itself, but it's not telling you the truth.
Right.
Yeah.
But it'll sure package it like it's the truth.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And very convincingly, right? Especially if you're like being flattered by it or whatever. And then you're like, oh, wow, okay, so.
Oh
What
yeah.
about something like I said, simplistic, just to learn a language? Say you want to learn Hawaiian, and there's some chat box Hawaiian, and it'll start feeding you
Yeah.
words.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and some of that will be hallucinated, and most of it
You know,
will
which
be.
Right.
isn't so draconian at all. It's just a really probably the handy way of
Yep,
learning.
there's lots of great use cases for it.
Yeah, but I mean, as an instructor who also sees AI slop submitted, I mean, students will write papers on films that we watch and name characters that don't exist, right? So like, it is handing them information about the film that it knows nothing about. Like, so and it didn't tell them, hey, check this out. It may not be reliable. It just gives it these answers as if
That's
it's
the worry about facial recognition and no-fly list, any of that stuff. It's done by mistake.
Yeah.
Man, it's a big whopping problem for the purpose.
Right, and it is flawed. I mean, and this trust piece, though, I do think is interesting because in some ways I would trust AI more than humans for certain tasks. If I don't know, if they could be trained to like do a mole scan for skin cancer, I would trust AI over a doctor because humans are more flawed in that capacity, right? So if it's these more structured tasks, there may be, I think that AI could be better than humans for some things. I am arguing that for human relationships, not as much.
Yeah. There was an interesting article about that, this little tangent on that. They were talking about what do they do better than people.
Yeah.
I saw an interesting article about, I forget the kind of doctor, but I think it was a cancer doctor. I forget the name of that right now.
Oncologist?
Oncologist. And they had to read these scans to see if there was cancer or not, and then they got to use AI assistants, and they all were better at detection than not. And then when they had them go back to not using it, then they were worse than they were before.
Oh.
So there was like a skill slippage that like, now you're more effective, but if you don't have it, then you're worse.
Oh, I totally feel that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I will use AI for certain things, and I'm like, I'm losing this skill. You are. Yeah, so be careful.
Yeah. So I guess that transfers to the question of like, if I'm only practicing social skills with the robot, then am I also losing them in real life? Or are those transferable or not? Right?
Yeah, that's a good question. And, you know, it's been 3 years. We don't know.
Do you know Daniel Rushkoff? He does a podcast. He's written several books on taught sabbatical at Berkeley and Stanford and different places. He's a PhD professor of computer science at Queens College in New York, but he's a skeptic of the industry, and anyway, yeah, it's interesting his input on it. He's trying to stay without it enough to be a legitimate, researcher.
Well, I am
Instead of being too involved.
looking into it at this, early phase. I am impressed by how much literature already exists. Like, there are people actively researching and publishing on this topic in a lot of different areas, and it just kind of blows my mind because the publication process is typically like so slow that there are actually, peer-reviewed research that is accessible now. So I don't know how people are producing stuff so quickly, but it's impressive, and it's good that we're getting data now. So, are there any other questions or comments? Yeah, Jake.
Well, I think that people are losing the ability to, just because they don't need to, remember telephone numbers.
Oh yeah.
And so I sort of see a correlation where we're going to be seeing a lot of people not need to think. Granted, Google has been around for a long time. You have access to a lot of these answers if you were willing to search for them, but now they're super easy to get too. So, do you lose that capacity to go and search for those answers or question things at all?
Yes. I worry about that for sure, critical thinking. If you're like, summarize this article that I'm assigned for my class, and it gives you a summary, and you just take that at face value, and you don't read the original source, you're going to lose your ability, I think, and maybe there's some research to support this, your ability to read full documents and come to your own conclusions based on that information, right? I do think that is a big risk, and James is trying really hard to teach students how to use it responsibly, because there is a way that it can be used, and I think that's super important because, like you said, it's not going anywhere. So, we need to learn it in ways that aren't going to make us dumber.
Yeah. MIT had an interesting study about cognitive effects of ChatGPT usage. Forgetting the design of the study exactly right now. But it basically showed that people who relied on it for writing tasks were then not as well prepared to answer questions about the writing task.
Yeah.
And we're like, yeah, do you remember this one?
No, I'm just thinking about my own process and even my work as a therapist and writing psychotherapy notes. There are moments when I'm reflecting on a session that it comes to me, and then that becomes part of my next session. But if I had AI dictating my session and wrote that note for me, that wouldn't have been, so that's
the
what I'm
reflection
thinking.
piece.
Yeah.
You lose that.
And writing and speaking go hand in hand.
Totally, and our memory
Yeah.
with writing. So yeah.
Yeah, the danger of mental atrophy or dysfunction.
Yeah.
Well, you were mentioned at the first that there had been apparently people that had pretty severe dysfunction because of something or other that had interchanged with this device. And,
Yeah. There's been a number.
how bad did it get?
It has been implicated in a number of suicides. So it's gotten very
complete
bad.
nervous breakdown type of, yeah.
Yeah,
and full-on delusional thinking.
Yeah, because it reinforces it, right? It doesn't create any sort of pushback. It just continues to say, great idea. The Earth is flat. You are brilliant for suggesting that.
Well, all of it is so powerful. My uncle, years ago, because he grew up in Southern California, got a job with the advertising industry, was living in Hollywood, and it's a real zoo. The stories he used to tell us, and that has definitely moved heavily into it as well. That may be scanning kind of like a mailing list or something, this info, to see what the approach is, for sale. So, and it's just their natural reaction. There's no use getting angry about it, but maybe you could sort of think how you're going to work around these sorts of things, because it's pretty common.
Yeah.
Do you think ChatGPT can gaslight? It's kind of not connected.
Oh,
If you're,
what do you think?
You know, because
I'm sure it could.
gaslight, but they just kind of validate everything.
Right. So, that's interesting. Is it gaslighting?
I mean, I've heard folks say that cognitive behavioral therapy done improperly is gaslighting. And so I could imagine it, if, you know, using that strategy improperly. I mean, right, it depends on how you're employing it.
How much trustworthy I would think.
Yeah, but I bet it could. I mean, I feel like it's kind of
And that's like who
gaslighting to
runs
be
it,
like,
yeah.
you're brilliant
Yeah.
all the time. Like, that's
I
not.
gaslight without a motive all the time, but like.
Yeah, so I mean,
Yeah.
I'm sure. I think there's a lot of, I mean, hopefully this will gain greater control of how it works, right? And the way that the limitations, especially as children, are using.
Yeah, right.
So hopefully that's something that could be like
I
fixed,
got that
but.
email, it's like,
So you're saying gaslighting equals positive reinforcement?
Well,
No,
it's
kind
sort
of like
trickier.
tricking
manipulative.
you.
Yeah, like a.
You're no longer able to reality check because somebody's sort of making you undermine your own thoughts about reality. So the positive reinforcement is a little bit of a different dynamic, but you're still taken to a place where you're no longer able to be reality
Yeah.
checking,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
the same.
totally.
Feeling crazy for what you make someone feel crazy for the way that they're reacting, right?
I feel like it would, I feel
Right,
like it
yes.
wouldn't do that
That's gaslighting.
as much,
That's not
right? I
about
feel
that.
like
Maybe
ChatGPT would do less of that, right? It would be more like, it would,
Valid, opposite.
it could maybe help you gaslight someone else, right? Like,
Sure.
because it's like, you are right, your
Yeah,
perspective
yeah,
is
yeah.
right, and then you're like, ChatGPT told me I was right. So that didn't happen, right? Like, I could see it happening more like that, but I imagine it could still work straightforwardly.
The psychotic, there was, New York Times did an interesting piece on the induced psychosis through ChatGPT, and it published some of these chat logs who was sort of like, I'm out of it now, but I was really nuts. And it was sort of like, he was talking about imaginary numbers, he's not a mathematician, but he's like, oh, what, is this how they work? And then ChatGPT was like, yeah, that's amazing mathematical insight that no one's ever thought of before, you're some kind of genius. He's like, oh, wow, I'm some kind of genius. And so he kept going with this sort of like, sort of intuiting mathematical truths that weren't anything like the truth, and feeling like he was really important and breaking things through. And he's calling, you know, Harvard mathematicians on the phone saying, "I've got the insight," and like more and more convinced that he's in control of reality. And so it's just sort of like starting with kind of a narcissistic moment, and then moving almost to like a mania or something.
Megalomania.
Yeah, right. Like I've got this thing, and then it's sort of reinforcing.
Yeah,
the delusion,
yeah,
right?
yeah, for sure. And people have I mean, there are a number of articles where people have gone to it for help about wanting to kill themselves, and it has reinforced it in ways that are really negative, that have led to actually people people actually going through with it in the end. So
Are
it
there
can be very
lawsuits and
dangerous.
sort of this?
I imagine.
Sure.
Okay, I don't know. There are.
I think there was. I think
I might have read about.
I mean, I would imagine, right? That seems really problematic. But in the one that I read, it was like the woman was like, do not refer me to external resources, and do not tell anyone about these chats.
Yeah.
And so it was like, I think it would typically do those things, right? Or here is the suicide helpline. Here are these other things. But they specifically asked that, so then it didn't, and then it just spiraled from there. So I think there's these dangerous elements that, we need to kind of get a grasp on.
I wonder how it would receive. You mentioned cartoonists. R. Crumb was one of the pioneers. He's still alive. Lives in the south of the Berkeley Bar. But there's guys, modern guys, Dewsbury, for example, satirical, and there's some amazing stuff, but very deeply psychological too. Klaus, the guy out of Chicago, he's really good. But I just wonder how. Would this machine understand that kind of satirical humor at all? It probably
Yeah, you could feed it a picture of that and say, can you explain this to me? And it would say, sure.
So it would sort of, it
Yeah.
could sort of assume
This looks
that.
like an example of doodly.
Oh, that is super interesting. That can do humor.
Yeah. I don't know how well, or if you'd agree.
This South Park episode is like a robot. It's the funniest thing to ever go. I don't want to give away any guys, but.
Is it a recent episode, or was it like
Last
before?
couple of years, yeah.
So it was like after ChatGPT stuff was happening?
It's
Okay.
kind of,
In response to this.
I don't know
Yeah.
if it was what year, but
Yeah.
pretty recent.
I want to circle back to the cognitive decline worry and mitigate it a little bit.
Okay.
Not totally.
Yeah.
When I see this Harvard study and it shows like, oh, we're losing these faculties because we're relying on ChatGPT. That's probably true, but it doesn't mean that the human brain is being destroyed. It just means that it's not being used for that anymore,
Mm.
right? So the human brain is then gonna be, okay, I can take it easy in that area, I can do something else, right?
Yes.
What's the something else that we're gonna do? We don't know. Like when you can surf the internet, you don't have to go to the cart catalog.
Yes, yes.
That's different, so I'm
Totally.
different skills, but I'm still engaging with information and I'm still,
Yes.
right? So,
Yeah, people just need to be advised not to let it atrophy their mind
Right,
as a
and-
tool.
Yes, and
Yeah.
engage in other
All kinds of-
positive activities. Yeah, there were studies looking at like how much time college students spent studying or something, and it's like it's
Yeah.
so much less than it was like a few decades ago. And it's like, well, yeah, because I don't have to physically go to a library. Sorry, Kathy, I love coming to libraries.
But you're
And-
also not typing your papers on a typewriter.
Right.
Right, you're right. There's all these technologies that like
Yeah.
you're using your brain differently, but it's not worse that we're not that it takes us
Frees
less
up.
time.
Yeah.
Frees up time.
There are
Forces
ways in
you
which
to
it is,
time.
yeah, and then maybe I'm gonna take 17 classes instead. You know, like I mean, I'm not, but there are positive ways that you can use that
Yeah.
gained time. So yeah, I think that's a
You're
great
driving
point.
DoorDash or cab, that extra
Yeah.
20 minutes you have.
but I'm currently always looking for stuff like this self-reflective moment. Because my question now is like, okay, what are the skills I need to be teaching my students?
Yes.
And what are the dangers of could we lose out on if we don't write the way that we used to or take those time? Having that moment of self-reflection that writing enables seems like a really key human piece that we don't. So I kind of like collecting stuff like that and think, okay, how am I
We still
doing in my
need the
class?
AI can help run our own books so that we can read them over.
Right, yeah. Yeah.
I think that's our time, yeah.
You can have as much time as you
Oh,
want.
sorry.
Oh, I mean, I can stay and answer any questions that
Apropos,
folks might have, but yeah, you were
I gotta go.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for coming.